Hey guys, I'm Janet Varney, and I'm so lucky to be joined in studio today by Jennifer Beals. Thank you so much for sitting down with us, Jennifer.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
We're here to talk about a new web series that Jennifer is a part of. Actually, I'm going to pull it up right now. It's on the Wigs website, and Wigs is, you guys can see it right now.
It's part of YouTube, yeah.
It's a YouTube channel, and it's actually very specific and very special. Why don't you tell us about it?
Well, it's all scripted.
Female run
Yeah,
and generated.
No, actually,
No?
John Avnet and Rodrigo Garcia, who are very feminine and lovely in their own right.
It's okay if I completely misspoke. I know I got excited because it's very female centric.
Yes,
and
both of them are very female centric. And you know, I think they write women oftentimes better than a lot of female writers do.
Yeah.
But they created the channel, and it's a scripted network. It's all scripted material. They do have some documentaries that are a part of the series. And each story, each series, some are 1 episode, some are 3 episodes, some are 12 episodes, but each one of them revolves around a different woman.
Okay.
And the one that I'm a part of, the character's name is Lauren.
And so that's what I have pulled up. And your particular series of episodes focus on some fairly sensitive subject matter. It's intensely personal, but it's also intensely public right now, and should be in some regards, because it deals with matters of sexual assault happening amongst our armed forces and the sort of inactivity that's being taken by authorities to correct the situation.
Yes, and in Lauren, Troyan Belisario plays Lauren, the title character, and she's a young staff sergeant, and she's raped, and she comes to her commanding officer.
Played by you.
Played by me. Her name is Major Stone. And she comes to find how difficult it is to have the assailant prosecuted.
Was this something that you were aware of coming in, or was it something that you learned more about through doing the show?
Well, it's funny because I had been researching really what it means to be a woman in the military in general for a project that I'm working on, and I kept coming upon this subject far too often. And so when I went to go do the series, it was something that I was familiar with.
Okay. Well, I'm so lucky to also be joined by a couple of guests in our Google Hangout. I'm here with Nancy Parrish, who actually wrote the blog post that kind of inspired this conversation and gave us the opportunity to talk about Lauren, the series. Nancy Parrish, thank you so much for being here. You're the president of Protect Our Defenders.
I am.
And I'm going to ask you to talk a little bit about that in just a second, but I also wanted to welcome Sandra Lee. Sandra, you are a survivor of an incident similar to what we've just described, and I don't think we're going to get too into that, but I want to thank you so much for being here and weighing in with your opinions, and I want to encourage everybody to jump in if and when you feel like you have something you want to say. Don't wait for me to lead you in if you don't want. Having said that, Nancy, I've got this blog post pulled up for everybody to check out. It's time for Congress to act on sexual assaults in the military. And I'd love to hear a little bit about Protect Our Defenders and talk about the petition that people can get involved in.
Sure, great. Thanks for having me. And Jennifer, thank you for what you've done to bring attention to this issue. We, Protect Our Defenders, traveled the country documenting survivor stories, and we shared them with the country on our site. And we are a place for survivors to build community, to become active, and to take action to fix this problem. There's power in voices coming together, and so we are building a grassroots movement now with over 25,000 supporters strong. And so when the Lackland scandal broke, and some of your viewers may or may not know, but as of today, 38 female trainees at Lackland Air Force Base have come forward with 15 instructors being accused of rape or sexual assault.
I mean, that's that's a stunning number.
Yeah.
It really is a stunning number.
Oh, but you know what's more appalling is that this is just the tip of the iceberg. You know, and we didn't want Lackland scandal to become another sad footnote in the history of unpunished sexual violence within our military.
Well, I actually wanted to pull this up very quickly, Nancy. I've got your blog post up, and earlier I had the Protect Our Defenders website up. I'll pull that up again for you guys watching. But I just wanted to call up these numbers because it speaks to exactly what you were just saying. The military justice system for rape and sexual assault cases is overwhelmingly weighted in favor of the criminal suspect. Last year, there were an estimated 19,000 military rapes and sexual assaults, but only 3,200 victims reported the attacks, and out of those, only 191 cases resulted in court-martial conviction.
No, it's unbelievable. I'll tell you another unbelievable number, too, because so often this is dealt with as a gender issue.
That's
just
a great
women.
point. I was going to say, there's an overwhelming number of men in the military. I have to imagine.
The research that I saw, of 65,000 vets that are being treated for sexual trauma, 40% of them are men. And,
That's correct.
And I think that's something that goes underreported.
Yeah. Sandra?
Really,
oh, I'm sorry, Nancy.
no, go ahead, please.
Sandra, I was just going to ask if you felt a hesitation towards coming forward.
You know, in the beginning I did. It's not something to talk about very easily, and there's a lot of stigma to it too. And I for a very long time I felt pretty silenced regarding the topic. And it wasn't until a few years ago when I was asked to do a press conference in the middle of Times Square where I actually was able to free my voice enough to basically shout out to the world what happened to me. And it's really helped me deal with the issues and everything that has happened since then. So, speaking out on it, it's the more I do it, the easier it gets.
Have you been, and again, I cannot thank you enough for being a part of this conversation. Have you found support and sort of camaraderie in people who have experienced something similar since you came forward? Have you felt more met with a kinship in that way since?
I do. Back in 2007, I was an inpatient at a PTSD hospital, and the females that I was with, I mean, just about every single one of them were a victim of sexual assault. So in that setting, yes, but now that I'm, back into my own life and living my day to day, I don't know, it's difficult, I think. I don't feel that kinship right away, or that I don't know how to say this, but just it's still not something that I'm comfortable with enough
It's so
to
personal.
Yeah.
It's so personal. It's so personal, and again, I appreciate you being here. Why don't we go to actually a clip of the episode, because it very specifically deals with what we've just sort of talked about, which is the idea of the ramifications, the potential ramifications of making
Coming
your
forward.
voice heard. So I'm going to play that now for everybody.
What I am trying to do is to get you to understand that you are exposed. You are exposed to scrutiny. Only 10% of unrestricted reports get prosecuted, and even if the men are deemed guilty, they're likely to suffer a reprimand or a slight pay cut, nothing more. But what will happen to you may expose you to repercussions for your entire career.
How was that to shoot?
It's really interesting, in terms of what Sandra was talking about. Playing Major Stone, as an actor, I'm trying to create different layers. There are different parts of her. She's very ambitious. She's very strong. She's, sometimes bored by the job, being out in the middle of the desert sometimes. She's fearful sometimes. She wants to protect her troops. And at the center of all of this is this wound that she's had to bury so deep in order to silence herself, in order to succeed, in order to get ahead and survive. So at any given moment on the set, I felt incredibly strong and incredibly empowered, and yet ready to explode at any moment. And there are scenes that Troy and I have together, and she plays Lauren, and we are sometimes letting one another know, and sometimes in very veiled language, what has happened to us. And as an actor across camera from Troyan, I can see her start to get upset. And there's part of me is like, as Major Stone was like, don't you dare cry. Right. Don't you cry, because you're not allowed to. Right. You're not allowed to have those feelings because you're a warrior. And the fact is, you know, in the military, we are simultaneously asking people to have this intense loyalty and this almost love for one another, in that there's a ersatz kind of family that's created in a unit. You know, and the romantic notion of the military is there's this intense camaraderie, and that soldiers will do anything to protect one another and to help one another.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's overly romantic, but at the same time, you're asking people to be able to potentially defend that unit, which means you're asking people to potentially have to kill somebody. And it's a very fine,
so layered.
It's a very fine balance. And I think when you keep redeploying people, it becomes an increasingly difficult balance to keep.
I want to pull up a comment, and we have this window here on our site where people are able to comment, and it happens really steadily at like sort of a lightning speed throughout the day. On matters like, you know, banking and what's going on abroad and all kinds of different stuff. Pretty Baby, who is on and commenting, says, see how the comments quieted down. This topic makes people uncomfortable and should be addressed publicly more so that this doesn't continue. And I think it is interesting. There's been this sort of slowing, this quieting of comments. People maybe don't know what to say or how to react.
Or how to handle it. Yeah.
Nancy, I wanted to bring you back for a moment because I think we should talk about the campaign that's happening, the petition. I'm going to pull up, I tweeted about it today. I tweeted the suggested tweet. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, it's to your point from the person who just messaged you, which is people don't know what to do. This is so horrific. You know, just quickly, out of those numbers you reported that less than 13% report, of those few 13%, 80% wouldn't do so again if given the chance, because of the repercussions, the retaliation. And so we decided when we became involved with the Lackland crisis in terms of working with the media on this, we decided to launch a petition to call on Buck McKeon, who's the chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, to hold hearings on this most recent scandal of unpunished sexual violence in the military. And so we've launched this, and this is something we can do. It matters. A week ago, 4 survivors who are on our advocacy board traveled to D.C., delivered 13,000 petitions to Congressman McEwen and the members of the House Armed Services Committee to demand that they hold a hearing on this, that this not become another footnote in history. And we hope that your viewers will join us in signing this petition. We know through social media, we can go around the power structures and we can build community and we can take action and force change. And so this is an opportunity to do something about it. And we really, you know, we want to hold the military leadership's feet to the fire on behalf of these patriotic young servicemen and women. And it is, as Jennifer pointed out, many men as well.
And I do have the petition pulled up, just so you
And
guys
I
know.
wanted to ask you a question. I had heard that once an assailant is prosecuted and found guilty, once they enter into the civilian population, that they are not registered as a sex offender. Is that true?
That's correct.
Oh.
Yeah, that is true. And what's even more shocking is once someone is convicted, and even if they've been given a certain punishment, because of command discretion, a commander can choose to set that punishment aside or to plead down the charge to indecent language or adultery rather than the charge of rape. And the military for some years is supposed to have created a sex offender database. There still isn't one in place. So often they just, the few times they do actually take action against a perpetrator, they may just kick them out. So they're out and exposed into the community to commit this crime again. It's really appalling. And just one more quick thing, the military, on one hand, leadership has said zero tolerance, but we've collaborated in filing suit against the Department of Defense for retaliating against those who've come forward. And the military's defense in civilian court was that rape was incident to service.
No.
That it was an
Oh, my.
occupational hazard. And in fact, the court agreed, and we've appealed that. So it really,
That's amazing.
it is amazing. It is
You know,
amazing.
it's to me, I have a tremendous amount of respect for the military, especially doing the research that I've done in the last year. But, you know, this is so obviously a stain on the military, and I just hope that they do everything that they can in as expeditious a manner as possible to rectify this and bring some nobility back to the military, because this is just, it's unbelievable that we've been talking about it for years and years and years and years, and nobody's done anything about it. And I don't know if that's because people are trying to protect their careers, or they genuinely don't know what to do about it. But it really does seem that you need to take the reporting out of the chain of command, and it needs to stay within the military, but a different office needs to be created.
Sandra,
That's
I want
right.
to Sandra, I want to come to you on sort of on a more personal level, on the ground, if you will. What would you like to see change for people like you? What would you like to see the military's reaction in terms of an initial reporting process? What would you like to see change?
I think everything. I mean, you know, I didn't report mine at all. I was still in country, and I had a job to do. You know, I didn't have time to think about what was going on with me personally, because I needed to finish my mission.
Do you feel like do you feel like that's something that plays into it? Is that there's an expectation that because the situation is stressful to begin with, that perhaps a person could be taken advantage of in that way because you don't have time, quote, you know, as you said, to sort of deal with this stuff?
You know, I don't want to speculate, and I don't want to,
Understood.
you know, everybody's different. Everybody handles war different. Everyone handles stress differently. So it's hard to say, but for me personally, I did not have time to deal with it. You know, and I put it out of my mind for several years. It wasn't until 2007 where I actually admitted to myself, admitted to anyone else, that this is something that did happen to me. And everything just came flooding back. You know, it was a self-preservation thing. Because after it all came out, I couldn't function as a person anymore. You know, and it took me several years for me to get to where I am now. And, you know, it's every day, it's a continuous struggle, having to deal with, and I mean, not only with the military sexual trauma, but just having been in combat and having to do and see the things that I had to do and see, you know, so. But as far as change, I don't know. I mean, it's such a hard thing to come up with some kind of answer, because there's not one answer.
Right.
You know, and like Nancy was saying, I mean, it's up to the commander's discretion.
That's right.
You know,
And command discretion, if I could say, I mean, Jennifer hit the nail on the head. We have to remove the authority from the chain of command for victim care, for investigation and prosecution, because command discretion a commander is penalized for reporting a rape happening under his watch. His career is in jeopardy. His or her career is in jeopardy, that is the solution. And on our protectourdefenders.com, we actually have a link where you can tell your member of Congress to support HR 3435, which is the STOP Act, to remove authority from the conventional chain of command in dealing with sexual violence within the military. Canada's done it, Australia's done it, England's done it. We need to do it.
I mean, I know that in my old unit, we had an equal opportunity, basically advocate, and I was the NCO for that office, you know, and we would always get reports from, you know, other female soldiers and male soldiers, nothing like this, but, you know, other like sexual harassment and things like that, you know, and it's like they have you sit in a classroom, watch a PowerPoint, watch some videos about sexual harassment, sexual assault, and, you know, and it's a check mark on a box, basically, on a piece of paper, you know, and so there's no education, and there's no training regarding that. But also, you know, it's such a tough subject to talk about, regardless who you are, whether it's in the workplace or in the military or just, everyday civilian life, that even if the discussion were to happen, I just don't know if people will understand unless they've been in that situation, unless they know somebody who's been through it. It's hard to say.
Do you think it could be changed through leadership in their behavior? Do you think there are times when the leadership, either implicitly or covertly, furthers this, culture of misogyny, really?
I think so. I mean, I definitely think they have some accountability there. And I don't know. It happens in all ranks, officers, enlisted, the non-commissioned officers, and to put the whole, how can I say this? To put that much weight on a commander, I mean, I definitely do think that they need to be accountable, but at the same time, it's the individual soldiers as well.
Right.
You can't say, oh, well, the commander wasn't doing his job well enough, so that's why this happened. He allowed this to happen, or he or she allowed this to happen, because it could happen to anybody.
Right, right.
I'm going to acknowledge quickly, because there are so many people watching and weighing in with their support, that we're getting a lot of comments to all of you to thank you for participating in this conversation and bringing this stuff to light. Bobby Joe McKinney, I hope it's okay that I called you out. I see your comment, and there was a thread going on about the fact that you had to sit for so long with this experience before you came forward, and people are showing their support for you. And Bobby Joe McKinney said that it took her 36 years to seek help and come forward. So, this is really stirring up a lot for people who are watching even as we speak, and are very, very grateful to you for being a voice in a lot of what has been silent.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity. Even though I've dealt with some of my issues, it's, like I said before, it's very difficult to talk about even now. And opportunities like this, where I am able to speak out, it's just a blessing, because I do have a hard time doing that on my own, to speak out to others on my own. So this forum, or this what you have here is just phenomenal. I think it's great, and I'm really appreciative that you guys have taken the time to address this issue, and for you too, Jennifer, as well. To be involved in something like this, it's nice to see.
Thank you so much, Sandra. Nancy, I'm going to come back to you for just a moment. And obviously, we've talked about the petition. We've talked about how people who maybe haven't been directly affected by this phenomena can participate and can try to help elicit change. Can we talk a little bit about what resources exist aside from your website? I know there's also there's a hotline, I believe, that people can call. Is it through the DoD?
It is. There are a number of hotlines, and the Military Rape Crisis Center, which is a nonprofit organization, does wonderful work. There is a hotline that Department of Defense uses, and SAPRO has, for people to call. We receive so many letters, emails, calls from desperate moms in active duty who are faced with this issue, and both veterans who are trying to receive care, because, you need to understand, of over 500,000 vets, according to the DOD, come to the VA for help for military sexual trauma. 40% of homeless females are vets who suffered military sexual trauma. So it is an epidemic. And it's so important for your audience to know that we can do something about this together. We don't have to let this be just, as I've said, a footnote in history.
Well, ladies, I want to thank you so much for, again, for being here. I know I keep saying that. For me, it's our third day. It's still such an honor to just be a part of any of this and to be a part of this with you guys watching. one of the things that I think is great about being in the arts is this opportunity to create these works that stir people as well into action. And is there anything you'd like to say about Lauren or about Wigs before we say goodbye?
Just that I'm really, grateful to have been part of the story, and I'm grateful to be part of the discussion. And I hope that it implements some kind of change and does bring back some integrity to the military and people's perception of the military, because there are so many fine soldiers out there, and not everybody has to be categorized as a sexual predator.
Absolutely. Well, I've got that site pulled up again there for you guys, and of course you have all of this great information and more in our resource well. Please continue the conversation on HuffPost Live. Jennifer, thank you again so much.
Thank you.
Nancy and Sandra, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having me.
And there is more coming up in a little bit.